And good evening, everyone. Welcome to Arcane Radio. I'm Sean, the Fork Chop Forker, joined by Lon Strickler. And right off the bat, our good guest, our good friend, he's always around, Mr. Butch Witkowski. Butch, Lon, thanks for joining me tonight. Got a busy show ahead.
Yeah, there's going to be a fun one tonight.
I'm ready.
Have fun show.
Always, always. So, guys, without wasting any time, let's get into what we're talking about tonight. Because we got a lot of people in the chat room, a lot of people listening, and they want to talk about Dogman and what's been happening recently. So, Lon, Butch, who wants to start it off?
No, Lon, I'll let you fly first.
Yeah, what the hell's been happening? What's been going on with Dogman all of a sudden? You know, that's the question we got to ask. You know, this flap, or whatever the hell you want to call it, there have been an inordinate amount of sightings of bipedal-type canids in the central PA area in the past, well, you know, I guess it's been longer than that, but we're getting a lot of reports, even a few older reports in the past maybe 6 months. And some of the reports have been very interesting. And we did have some people volunteer to go out and talk to a couple of the witnesses, and they saw something. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. They saw something. It's just a matter of what the hell did they see. And this Dogman phenomenon has been something that's been going on in Pennsylvania and other parts of the world, especially in the upper Midwest, in Pennsylvania, and a few other areas nationwide. But seems we got something going on here, Butch.
Yeah, and the thing is, I mean, all the reports are so similar in description of the creature. We have no idea what we're looking at. From all the reports, we know that it is bipedal, it has wolf-like features, it has dog-like features, it is massive in size, it is very muscular, and it's not something that people see and it runs away. It's basically, in some of the reports, it's followed, it walks in front of people. The gentleman that approached it with a vehicle, I mean, it actually, like he said, it didn't look very friendly. When his headlights finally hit it, he got scared. You know, he professed to everybody in the reports that he said, "I don't care what you guys think or what you guys say." He said, "I have seen werewolf." So, are we dealing with this identification of a Bigfoot? Are we dealing with a big dogman type creature? Are we dealing with a wolf type creature? Are we dealing with a skinwalker? We don't know. So
I don't know if it is Bigfoot, Butch. I mean, we've talked about it on the show the last couple weeks, and we've been talking about it off the scenes for a while. The footprints don't match up from what we've seen and what we've recorded, and the witness's description don't really add up. Even
right,
though we can say 7 feet tall, hair covered, Butch, they're not. The face is very different.
Yeah. They all have a snout. They all some shorter than others. They're short-haired. Dark or dark brown or black. They are, how it was described to me by one witness was, take Arnold Schwarzenegger, take him up to about 7.5, 8 foot tall. Don't change anything muscular in the body, anything like that. Just give him a little bit of a snout, and that's what I saw. And, you know, I said, well, did you think maybe you saw a Sasquatch? And he said, no, absolutely not. He says, no pointed head, no neck going to the shoulders, none of that stuff. So at this point, you know, to be honest, we really don't know what we're looking for, other than it's, like you said, the tracks are different. The way it stalks people is different, like people are being followed. It doesn't retreat. It doesn't run. And, you know, when you look back at cases, I found cases that go back and in the newspaper in the 1800s of people describing the exact same thing that we're getting reports of now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, historically, there have been, you know, even down here in Maryland, the Dueo sightings back in the 1800s, early 1900s. You know, even one recently back in the 60s, we have a documentation of And they all tell you the same thing. It's got a muscular body, a thin waist, a
Hmm.
dog body to it. It has the backward hocks on it, a dog hock, a canine hock, and it's got the dog head and the dog snout. But it stands up on two legs. So there you go.
And some are seen with pointed ears and long tail. Some are short tail, short cropped ears. But, again, what they're describing is the classic Dogman, werewolf, skinwalker looking creature. But there's no protocol for this. I mean, there's protocol to go out and search for Bigfoot. There's protocol for paranormal. There's protocol for UFO. I mean, how to conduct an investigation. There's nothing for this. So on our end, the best thing to do is just, get together an expedition, load up all the equipment, take everything we got, and go out and hunt.
How do you think we should proceed on that?
What's that?
How do you think we should proceed on that?
Well, I think the best thing to do is what we're going to set up a base camp. We have all the equipment. That's not a question about it. I mean, we have the infrared FLIR cameras. We have infrared cameras. We have all listening devices. We have all that kind of stuff. And so what we're thinking of doing is setting up a base camp and setting up a couple secondary camps, not too far away, but all looking in that one direction. Where we're going, we're going to have a very wide view of a heavily wooded area. And, of course, in the daytime, the FLIR and the infrared not going to help us a whole lot. But we want to look the area over, particularly in the first case we have from November of 2014, that we're going to be right in that close to that area. And some other researchers have been in that area, and they've seen impressions. They're not saying footprints. They're saying impressions. So, but come nightfall, which is pretty much when these things are seen, from dusk until, the wee hours of the morning, we're going to depend on the FLIR devices, for the generation of heat, and the infrared, of course. There'll be cameras that are going to be going round the clock, so we're not going to miss anything. And like I said, this is something new. I mean, there's just no protocol for this, so we're just going to take everything we got and throw it at it and see what happens.
Yeah, I think the earlier investigations are going to tell a lot on how we proceed on what's going on. Now, the first weekend, which is going to be this next weekend, this coming weekend, will be concentrated in the Clearfield County area, right?
Correct. Yes, that's correct.
We've had 2 sightings up there. The one you mentioned back in November of 2014, and another one recently.
That was in July, I believe.
In July, yep. And that was actually, as the crow flies, just a few miles away from the other one. Right,
and then we have the next one will probably be in the Blair, Cambria County area, where we have 2 reports.
Okay.
And then there's, we got reports in Schuylkill, Cumberland, and then there's reports coming in from Butler and Beaver and Westmoreland, and, so we're just going to try to take them one at a time. We've got some really good stuff coming from people that have heard strange noises. I sent you guys a video that was just a couple campers in that area that reported a strange howling that they said they didn't think was a coyote. They're very familiar. They're very, adept hikers. And this was back in Thanksgiving of last year.
That was in Allegheny State Forest, right?
Yes, yeah. And so, there I have the one report is from the 14th of November, and then their report is, of course, the 26th or 27th, I believe. So there's something walking around out there. We just know that there has to be, and there has to be a way to capture it, either on film or through evidence. And when I say evidence, like the one report of the guy driving home while watching the creature chewing on something on the side of the road, which was probably a deer roadkill. We'd like to get, if we find anything like that, we want to take samples of bone, chew marks, hide, skin, anything that we can find that's fresh enough that we may be able to get some information out of that way. Chew marks from a canine and chew marks from a wolf are two different things. And also are the footprints. A wolf or a dog, a large dog, the footprint would be different. And of course, with the hawks, it's going to be a lot different. So that's basically, this is a hunt for evidence, and however we obtain it and whatever we have to use, we're just going to use. So we're going to be up there for 3 days and see what we come up with. And we'll be in constant contact, of course, with, you, Lon, back there in case we need any information, either by internet or by phone. So, there's the history of the whole area is just so weird the more you look into it. Because, of course, up until 1754, there were no white men in that area. That was strictly indigenous. There were quite a number of tribes. So you have tons of burial mounds, and I'm not saying we're talking about a skinwalker. I'm just saying that would play into the equation, just like anything else in this would. But you have burial mounds all over the place. Actually, one of the places we're going is sacred ground. We've got all that information, which we've contacted from a Cherokee clan out in Oklahoma that's given us a lot of information, what to look for. So armed with all the information and quite a few months of investigation and notes and everything else we can put together, maps and topo maps and all that, I'm just hoping it yields some direction anyway, that if we can't get a whole lot where we're going this time, maybe it'll help us at the next spot we go to.
So, you've definitely, put the research into this and the thought and the planning going into this, guys. So let's step back just a moment and talk about some of the cases that are really getting us to this area. Lon, this started a few months back, and we've been getting Dogman sightings for a while. But what prompted this series of events? What was the genesis of this Dogman situation we're in?
Oh, that state game land sighting that was sent to Butch was actually the one that got us thinking about what was going on. And this was new to Butch as well. I don't know how many Dogman cases he's had sent to him.
0.
Yeah, well, there you go. This was in the state game land 331, which is in Clearfield County, Pennsylvania. It's near Penfield, PA. And this gentleman who was walking his 2 Weimaraner dogs, they were just in there walking about, and this damn thing just pops out of nowhere. And he described it as 8 to 10 foot tall, weight unknown, large strides, short hair, dark colored, most likely brown, but very dark. Thought that it may be a Bigfoot, but had a prominent snout like a canine. Now, the fact that this, and this is like a lot of other cryptid sightings we get. It just comes from nowhere, and that's basically what happened to this deal. It just showed up. He was walking the dogs, and I believe to his right, the thing just popped up.
What happened when the guy's walking his dogs, the dogs stop and they start going crazy. They want to tear into the right-hand side of the wooded area off a fire trail. And, of course, the first thing comes to his mind, because he's walked there many times, lives in the area all his life, hunted that area all his life, retired airline and military pilot. And he says, first thing he thought was, well, it's a possum, skunk, raccoon, maybe a bear. It could be anything. The dogs go nuts every now and then. But then as whatever was coming through the woods, which he did not see at that point, the dogs were following it. They kept moving to their left. And when it steps out onto the fire trail, it walks across the fire trail. Of course, the dogs wanting to get at it, something terrible by now. They're digging holes in the ground, trying to get away from their handler and get to this creature. They see it. He sees it. He describes it. It walks into the other side of the road and just kind of walks in. And that area is very thick. I was just out at the Hillview Conference out there, and coming back, we went right past that kind of area, and it was broad daylight. And the fellow riding with me, one of my researchers, looks over and he says, "Look into that woods," and it was black. And we were only, at the most, 25, 30 yards from the edge of the woods on the highway. And you couldn't see, I mean, you could have 50 people stand there nude flashing you, and you wouldn't have seen anybody. And another researcher who was just up there recently said the same thing. It's a very dense, black, dark area. So the guy goes back to his truck. He retrieves a handgun. He goes back up. And he goes into the right-hand side. He sees nothing, no footprints, no broken leaves, bushes or anything down. Goes to the other side, nothing. Okay, goes back and tells his buddies. Now, the whole time this is going on, he's keeping in contact with me by phone. He says, "Well, we're going to go out tomorrow morning to take a better look, and we're going to go armed." And I'm going like, I don't think that's such a good idea. You know, all I can see is these guys mounting a 50 caliber on the truck. And so they go out, and he calls me just before noon. They left. He called me and said they were leaving, and he'd get back to me. And it wasn't too much after that, maybe 45 minutes. He got back to me. He says, "I want to tell you something, Butch." He says, "What we did was went to the spot. We could see the spot because the holes were there from where the dogs was. We walked into the right, went in through quite a distance, nothing. Walked into the other side where the creature went into." He was saying, "We got in 20, 30 yards. He said, "That's where we stopped." He said, "We all had the same feeling. We need to get out of here. We need to get out of here right now." And we backed out where our weapons pointed forward and backed all the way to the truck. And he said, "I want to tell you something, son." He says, "I am never going back there again, because if we would have stayed, something really, really bad was going to happen." And we've seen that in other reports where people get that fight or flee. So,
Well, and that specific location has had some weird stuff going on anyway.
yeah, but the weirdest thing about the whole thing is when he sees this creature walk out across the road. Now, I don't know about you guys, but if I got two dogs the size of Weimaraners wanting to tear at me, I'm looking for the tallest tree that I can get my fat can up into.
Mm-hmm.
This creature did not look at him. It did not look at the dogs. It just walked out straight ahead and walked into the other side like he never existed.
And we've heard that before.
Weird.
Yeah, we've heard that type of thing before. With other cryptids, and I mean, and especially Bigfoot, they seem to show up and they act like, they know that nobody's looking at them, and they just can go on their own way and not look back and just keep walking. And
yeah, this guy said it walked across like he or the dogs didn't even exist.
Yeah.
And it's very
Definitely
strange.
Bizarre.
It is odd. So, in Clearfield, like we have been looking into a lot of this. That Clearfield area was a very heavy Lenni Lenape area.
Mm-hmm.
Delaware Indians, basically.
Yep.
They had some of their largest village was right in where Clearfield is today, the city of Clearfield, and they have a Wendigo type creature in their folklore, and it's an odd looking thing. I've seen pictures of it, and they say it's about 15 foot tall. It's got the skin of a bear and a large face, and it it supposedly guards the forest. Well, that's nothing like a skinwalker. That's something else.
Yeah, because
yeah.
Everything we found out about skinwalkers are that what they are in the lore of the indigenous are that they are shaman who have basically gone to the other side, and to get to the other side, they have to kill a family member, and they do it for power, they do it for prestige, and they can shapeshift at will. They can turn into anything they want. Most predominant turn that they do is they turn into a wolf. So it's like a man wolf, but not a wolf. I'm not talking about a werewolf. This would have the body of a man, but the legs and arms of a man, but the legs would have the feet and the hands of a man, but like kind of in between a human and a wolf, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
And they fear nothing. They can pop up anywhere at any time. They could walk into your camp and be talking to you, and you wouldn't know it. according to the Cherokee that I've spoken to, the shaman and the chief. So, he said, if you got somebody just walks into your camp, say hello, this, that, and the other thing, making small talk, there's things you need to look for. And he said things they can't hide, which is like shaggy, dirty, matted hair, unkept, shifty eyes, sniffing constantly at the wind like they're sniffing game, like an animal would sniff game. He said those are things they can't hide. But although that really makes it a colorful story, I just don't think that that's what we're dealing with. I lean more toward the Dogman thesis because there are so many reports. But then you got to throw that in there because a lot of these reports, they describe it as the face of a wolf, or the ears or tail, or I don't know about anybody out there, but if I see something 7 or 8 feet coming at me, and it looks like a wolf, and it has hands that can hold me while it starts chewing on me, I'm going to be a little upset.
Well, I'm just sitting here thinking about 15 feet. So the ceiling in the studio is about 15, 16 feet tall. And I'm just looking up, and holy crap, that's immense. And when you think of somebody seeing something 8 to 10 feet tall, right? That's large in itself. And let's say realistically, if we look at that, we're still probably looking more along the lines of 7 to 7.5. I mean, sure. I think we sometimes have a tendency to blow heights out of proportion, but even 7.5 feet tall, guys, is huge. It's still massive, and the weight description on these things is nothing to be trifled with either. So you're looking at something that's got some real power behind it, and I don't know how we take this from a skeptical point of view. How people, that's a massive hallucination. I mean, I want to know what kind of hardcore drugs they're doing to see something like that.
Well, and they've been doing it since the 1800s.
Yeah.
If we start to look at it like that, we have to be skeptical. That's number one. But I found it was kind of hard to find, but I did find a picture of a gray wolf. Now, a gray wolf measures from nose to tail, to butt, not tail, forget the tail, just nose to butt at 6 foot. I found a picture of one standing up on its hind legs, and it measured almost 8 foot tall. But it didn't walk away. I mean, it just stood there.
Yeah.
Now, I've heard some rumors of a wolf rehabilitation center out that way.
Yeah, there is. But they're almost domesticated, you know what I mean? They're not something that you're going to encounter in the wild.
I don't imagine they're walking on 2 legs either.
No. But it's just, these cases are just too weird to just ignore them. I mean, the people that are giving the reports are very credible. We haven't had any yet that we even questioned amongst ourselves as being credible, or being not credible. And it's just at the point now where, we can talk and research about it all we want, but it's going to take boots on the ground to go to these places and see what's what and what's in the area, and see if there's anything we can find, see if there's anything we can capture on film or video or with infrared or thermal imaging devices, and we'll have 2 of those there. So we'll have excellent night vision, and from everything I read, at least what I could find, these things are more apt to be out at night than they are during the day. Because if it is something, how should I say, if it is something that's just nocturnal, then you would almost have to take a bunch of reports that were given out over time that were seen in the daytime and throw them away, and you can't do that because, people see what they see. And what always amazed me with some of these reports, as a matter of fact, a good bunch of them, is where people say this right off the get-go. This was no Bigfoot. This was no Sasquatch. This was a dog that was walking upright and was very big, very large, and very ugly. Now, I can find those reports all across the country. I can find them in Europe, South America. So it is amazing.
Well, what has been interesting to me, uh, before we started getting these number of reports coming in, all of a sudden from PA, we were getting a lot of reports in Ontario, Manitoba, Upper
Mm-hmm.
Midwest, and of course the report that Stan Gordon forwarded me from the Lakewood, Colorado area outside of Denver, and the one uh, Dogman, I call the Lakewood Lichen, that Jack Carey and J.C. Johnson are investigating, and
And look what Linda had a case from Cumberland County.
sure, yeah, she did. Yeah, she had a
So
case from Cumberland County.
so we've got all these counties and they all seem to have one thing in common. They do have deep, dark woods. There's certain areas of Pennsylvania that are just unbelievably deep and dark, and there's other areas where you could take a nice hike, walk around, and look at a lot of things, see a lot of animals. But there are places you can go in this state where you walk 5-10 feet in there and get separated from the guy behind you, and you got to start yelling because you can't see him.
Oh yeah, I've been to some of those places in Pennsylvania where the woods are so deep and dark that you want a buddy to go along with you. And some of those areas are just some old growth forests that have been around for a long time that haven't really been touched or logged or, out in Cooksburg Forest, I believe, out that way. Some of the trees are so large you can't even wrap your arms around them. So you still have some areas of Pennsylvania that are untouched and are very rough terrain.
Well, Pennsylvania's got a lot of rhododendron and laurel, and it just tends to make it really thick and hard to see in there. And I mean, that was one thing that just used to make things when I used to go hunting, was make things hard for me. It was the laurel. I mean, you know how that is. You start getting what you think's a trail, and this thing goes to nothing, and you got stuff all over you. You can't find your way back.
And you got
So
that
they are
undergrowth.
thick.
You got that undergrowth that'll rip your pants off.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and could something be living in that area or manifesting in that area, however you want to say it? Yeah, easily. And probably be. I mean, how many times have you walked by an animal while you were hunting? I know I did. I walked by a coyote one time. He was only 3 foot away from me. I never saw him. The guy behind me saw him after he started moving, but I walked by him. I never saw him. I never even took a glance at him. I walked right by him. So, it's just the only thing I can come up with is just get people on the ground, get all the stuff out that we can, anything scientific, anything photographic, anything that we can, and just try to capture something. I mean, it could be a shadow, on our infrared or on our thermal devices. It could be a hot spot. It could be a cold spot. It could be pretty much anything. We don't know.
Well,
But there's only one way to do it. Just load up and go do it.
The next sighting in Clearfield County was kind of the one that got us going on this. We had this other one we were looking at, but I got an email from a guy. He said, I saw a werewolf.
Yep, that's
And
the
I thought,
guy.
well, that's nice. Then he said, I live in a small town called Penfield, Pennsylvania. And I'm thinking to myself, uh-oh, now what's going on?
Well,
Is this
before
guy playing a game with me or whatever? And no.
before we get into that, let's take our first break of the night here. It might be our only break of the night. And smoke them if you got them. Do whatever you need to, folks. We'll be back in just a couple minutes. Sean Forker, Lon Strickler, and Butch Witkowski, Arcane Radio. Stick around. And welcome back, folks. Arcane Radio, Sean Forker, Lon Strickler, and our guest tonight, Mr. Butch Witkowski. And gentlemen, before we took a break, we were getting ready to talk about the incidents in Penfield, which is right outside Clearfield, Pennsylvania. And, guys, a couple weeks ago, Lon, you and I have been talking on the air and off the air that I was worried that by, talking about these cases on the air, we were going to create a sensation. I'm glad I've been wrong on that. But more so, when you thought we would get more sightings reports coming in because of how much we've been talking about it, it hasn't been the quantity of the reports that have been coming in. It's been the quality of the reports.
Well, I think for the most part, some of the reports we got were high quality reports, and especially like this one I'm going to read about in Penfield, and the one report at in Portage, PA, which ended up turning out to be two reports in the same location from two different witnesses, and of course another one which is in Blair County outside of Hollidaysburg. So yeah, and they were all quality reports. So well, let me go ahead and introduce this sighting. This kind of got us going. Like I said before, yeah, I got this email, and I think it was, I don't know, what was it, just about August, I guess I got it. I know the incident was in late July.
Definitely.
But he said, I saw a werewolf, and I'm thinking, okay, here we go. Another one. Hello, I live in a small town called Penfield in Clearfield County, Pennsylvania. Well, right off the bat, I'm thinking, now, is somebody, pulling my leg or whatever? Because that's not far from where, the one that Butch got came from. So this encounter happened in late July this year in 2015. I was driving home from work on Boy Scout Road in Penfield. I usually stick to the main roads when driving home, but sometimes take a back road to take in the scenery. Now, as I was coming around the bend, I saw a large brownish tan creature crouching on the side of the road. Now, this is daytime. This was late afternoon. I slowed down to get a better look. That's when it turned its head towards my vehicle. It had a large head and yellow glow in its eyes and a long nose. I couldn't believe what I was looking at. It was eating roadkill, and I believe it was a deer. Now, at that point, I slammed my foot on the gas pedal and didn't let off the gas until I reached my home. I then jumped out of the car and ran into my house and locked my doors. I grabbed my rifle from my closet and loaded it. I went in my basement and took out a silver letter opener that I'd gotten after my grandfather passed away. So this guy's freaking out. Well, anyway, he later says, I haven't seen anything since, but I would like to add that about a month prior to this, I was at a local Minute Mart getting gas. A game commissioner officer pulled up to the next bump. Attached to his truck was a trailer, and in that trailer was an elk. A lot of elk have radio collars, and when one dies, it's the game commissioner's job to figure out how it died and to take samples. So I asked the man, I said, what had happened to it? Yeah, it was about a young elk, about 2 to 3 years at most. It looked fine to me, except for the fact that its throat was slit. He told me that he had no clue, and that when he found it, the collar it had been wearing was about 10 foot away. He said at first they thought it was a bear, as it was the only animal around there that large enough to take down a bull elk. But there was no evidence indicating a bear. Plus, he told me the cut on the throat was too clean. After that conversation, I didn't think too much about it until I saw this thing the other night, or that night. He says he's a very fact-based person, and he's he's lived in the area a long time, all his life basically. So I got on the horn with this guy, and I'm thinking, well, I'm going to be careful about how I talk to him. So I contacted him right away, and he couldn't add any more information, though. It was determined to be bipedal since it crouched on two legs. I got the impression he was pretty shook up, and he wasn't really sure he even wanted to report it. But I did get him to get into a few more details. So what we did, I got an area about where it was seen at. I got the GPS and everything, and this is where we're going to be. That's where Butch and them are going to be starting out this week. So there you go.
The Penfield Predator.
And the Blair County?
The Blair County. Well, the Blair County sighting. Let me see here. Let me pull it right up.
As Lon searches the archives.
I'm pulling them down.
We should have
I
some
had the
music
other one
playing
up
in the
there.
background.
I had the Cambria County up there first before that. Okay.
How dare you be out of sync?
Here we go.
Shame.
I got this on September 3rd, 2015. I'm currently a resident of Altoona, PA. I'm writing this to report a strange encounter I experienced with a friend of mine in the early morning hours of Sunday, March 17th, 2013. The incident is now over 2 years old. I chose not to report this event prior to now due to the unwillingness to expose myself or my family and friends to public scrutiny. In light of the recent spat of similar sightings in central Pennsylvania, I have changed my mind. He had been reading the blog. Perhaps our experience will help with the current research. As such, I would like to make my intention clear that myself and any persons mentioned, please retain anonymity at this time. Reporting a Bigfoot or UFO sighting is one thing, but this is something different. On the evening in question, a friend and I were returning from a job that we had performed at Williamsburg, Pennsylvania. My friend was driving. To the best of my recollection, the incident occurred somewhere around 1:30 a.m. to 2 o'clock a.m. on the morning of March 17th. We were traveling southwest on Route 22 through what is locally known as Geezy Town. It's a rural suburb of Hollidaysburg, Pennsylvania. As we rounded a little curve in the road, our attention was drawn to our left on the opposite side of the road. Squatting in the clearing a few foot off the side of the road was some kind of creature. My friend wasn't driving very fast and slowed a bit as we approached. Our initial view of it was from the dorsal side, as it was facing away from us. It came into profile as we passed with it right side to us. It struck me immediately that the creature had a combination of both human and canine features. It was squatting down on its legs close to the ground, but was doing so in a bipedal fashion. The legs had a stifler joint and hock characteristic of a canine, not like a human leg. That's a stifle joint. I'm sorry, stifle joint. It had its front limbs and arms in front of it, and I believe it was possibly crouching over something, maybe a smaller animal. The arms were long in proportion to the body. I recall thinking the hands were more human-like as opposed to paws. Its torso seemed to be somewhat hunched forward. I had the impression that at the time, it could have gone on all fours quite comfortably. The creature's chest was not broad like a human's, but had a pronounced forward angle breastbone like a canid. It gave an impression of great strength, having distinct and well-defined musculature, but was not built on a massive frame. It seemed more thin and sinewy. If it had stood fully erect, I would estimate that the creature would have been close to 7 foot tall. It was covered in fur that was grayish silver in color. The creature seemed unnaturally shiny, although this could have been a reflection from the headlights of the moon. It had pointy, erect canine ears that were somewhat laid back on its head. The head was large and very wolf-like in overall appearance. The muzzle was also very wolf-like canid, although the snout wasn't exceptionally elongated. It had canine-like teeth. To the best of my recollection, the eyes were an amberish color, but may have had a reddish glow reflection to them. It had a wolf-like tail, and it turned its head to watch us and track us as we passed. It seemed quite aware of our presence. My friend and I continued in stunned silence for a few minutes. When the creature was no longer in view, I turned and asked my friend what we had just seen. It looked like a werewolf. Well, that was his exact words. I agree that this was pretty much my own assessment. I asked if he could turn the car around, but he absolutely refused to do so. We spent the rest of the trip debating whether I could have been a dog or even someone's escaped pet wolf. But to be honest, it just wasn't. I'm sure that both my friend and I are experienced outdoorsmen, and neither one of us has ever seen anything fitting that description before. I was actually raised not far from the area, and I know it quite well. I have spoken to my friend about this, and neither one of us would be willing to take a polygraph. And feel free to contact us with questions. And I had the opportunity to speak to both witnesses. Each mentioned an interesting point, which was that this creature had a silvery aura around it. That's a description I don't think I've ever even heard in any of these other ones. I asked other people, and I don't think that's been something that's come up. But it said, like it raised it raised his hackles a bit because it suggested like a supernatural aspect may exist with this thing. So there you go. What do we got?
Yeah, and another feature that shows up in a lot of reports is the eyes being yellow or glowing yellow or glowing amber, not red.
Mm-hmm.
And out in the western part of the state, from Mercer County and Westmoreland and all out through there, the Center for Unexplained Events group with Brian Seach and Stan Gordon. I mean, they have these reports out there that go back years.
Mm-hmm.
And so, are we dealing with? First of all, I want to say this: I can't find any reports in the eastern part of the state. The furthest east I can get where I get a report is Schuylkill County. Other than that, nothing north, nothing south. But then, just when I say that, I come up with one in Bucks County, Pennsylvania, back in the late 1800s, almost 1900s. And it describes the same damn animal, creature, whatever, that we're looking for. Now, that's very strange. But back in those days, Bucks County was probably a lot of woods and not too many folks.
Mm-hmm.
I have to tell you, Butch and Lon, it's only been recently, maybe the last 10 years, that Bigfoot reports have been coming out of the eastern part of the state. You've been getting them out of the southwestern part of the state since the 70s, but you really haven't been getting them out of the northeastern central Pennsylvania area. It's been, there's not, I guess it's because folks don't really know there's someone out there to collect these stories, and it's also a little bit more of a conservative area. You have experienced hunters out this way. It's a very rural area. You don't have as many, big cities, to get to Philadelphia or Pittsburgh, both opposite ends of the state, but everything else in the middle, for the most part, guys, is really wooded. And I think people don't really appreciate that unless you live in Pennsylvania.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, Pennsylvania, it's just like some areas you go to Pennsylvania, and people, like you said, people don't realize it. It's almost like a wilderness area. It's pretty amazing. I mean, that you'd walk into some place that it just looks like nobody ever touched it before. Nobody was even there, and I knew. I mean, I used to go hunting a lot when I was younger, when I lived up in PA, and it always amazed me how untouched everything seemed to be, and it's still like that.
We do have a couple questions from the chat, guys. One from Zugman. He or they would like to know if there's been any stories of disappearances of people connected with Dogman encounters.
There's reports of missing people, but not with Dogman encounters that we can find.
Or that they don't know it was a dog, man.
Right.
Yeah,
I hate when you say that, Lon, or that we know of. There's just something so sinister about that.
Well, this missing 411 thing that David Paulides has been writing about now for a couple of years, it's one of those things too. There's disappearances, but then again, why or what is doing all this? Who's to say that Dogman is doing the same thing?
Yeah, this case I was talking about in Bucks County. Now, the original report takes place back on June 6, 1866, and it's a report of, it was in the paper in that date, and it said, reports of a wolf-like creature attacking a group of canal boat travelers was filed with local authorities. These documents are preserved today at the Yardley Borough Hall. I have requested those, and they said they're going to send them, but I haven't gotten them yet. Sightings of the wolf have increased over the years, although the stories remain questionable. The only known photo was taken in 1978 by a local resident, Theodore Sheffield, and the photo shows what appears to be a large wolf that is also at that location that I requested from the Borough Hall. Now, Sheffield evidently passed away many, many years ago, but I'm still waiting for that information. So did somebody actually get a picture of this? And it's one of the only reports that we see where a wolf-like creature has attacked anybody.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they've scared people half to death, or probably closer to that. But it's the only one where we can find where this type of creature has attacked anybody. So,
well,
let's just hope it stays that way.
Yeah, before we got that Blair County report, we received a report from Portage, PA, which is in Cambria County. Now, that's not that far away from the Blair County report. It's almost like 20 miles, but it's not even that far from the Clearfield sightings. It's almost like it's an area there. And we had some members of the Pennsylvania Bigfoot Society actually go in there and do the interview with the witnesses after they had contacted me. And it was interesting because their interviews were pretty much close to what ours came, what she said to me in the interview. But another thing was they ran across another incident at the same place by another witness. Same description, everything. The hocked legs in particular, though they didn't see a head or torso. They just saw the big hot legs that were that were bipedal, and it was in the park in the town of Portage as well. So, and from what I understand, they may not have been the only two. There may be another one as well, but we're going to try to follow. I'm trying to follow up on that and see if something had come in a couple of years before that.
Another question we got here, guys, is from Patricia, and she'd like to know, are there any theories on where it beds down? Are there any caves, holes in the ground?
Well, that's what we'll be looking for. I mean, that's some of the stuff we're going to be looking for to see if we can't find, anything like that in the area. We do got some cave maps that we got, and the closest one to where we're going to be is about 4.5, 5 mile away, but it's not a very deep cave. It's maybe 10 foot deep, they say, and maybe 10 foot high and about 30 foot wide. So it's more like a crevice than it is a cave. But I don't have anything yet on the other parts of the state. And up in Schuylkill County, there's a cave every 2 blocks or an old mine or something like that. But in the area we're going, we can only find one. Now, what we will also look for while we're there is maybe old homes or factories or old buildings that are either abandoned or, maybe still intact halfway, that something could be hiding in there or using it for a domain. I haven't decided who I'm going to let go in first.
There you go.
I'll get stuck.
It's not going to be me, buddy. No, seriously, it's something that we're going to look at. We're going to take a culmination of everything we've learned over the years in ufology and in the equipment we use there, and in Bigfoot research and in the paranormal research. We're just going to take everything and throw everything up, and that's it. We have no other way of doing this, so we've got to conduct it like we're doing all types of investigations on one investigation, and see what gets us in the best way or the best direction, and then take it from there.
Folks, you can call in at 570-478-0902, or Skype in at Forker Media on Skype. We'll take your calls tonight. Until then, if you don't want to call, that's okay. We're not a phone dating service, though, and not another type of phone line, so just be mindful of that. It's bit us in the past, and we've tried to take phone calls live. But we'll try to be as professional as possible as long as you do. Anyhow, back to you, Lon.
Yeah, and subsequently, we've received a few reports here and there. I had talked to Linda Godfrey, during this period we've been getting these reports, and she told me of a habituation situation just west of Harrisburg, which I figured was Cumberland County because, quite frankly, I had heard something similar in the area of Newville. Now, I don't know if this is where that was, but a trout fisherman had seen something that looked like an upright dog running away from him while he was out in Big Spring. I think it was Big Spring fishing. And it's funny. I do get a lot of reports in Pennsylvania from fishermen, trout fishermen in particular, and not necessarily Dogman, but Bigfoot and all that, but they are aware of what's out there, and a lot of these guys aren't afraid to send in something. But I tell you, Cumberland County, which is known more for fishing, trout fishing, fly fishing, we have received a lot of Bigfoot reports in that area, and now we have a Dogman report out of there as well. So, and subsequent to that, and later we had a 7-foot bipedal dog-like being with a long snout seen in Schuylkill Haven, Pennsylvania, and the witness stated she had seen this individual 3 times on 3 different occasions.
Not once, not twice, but thrice.
So, but since then it's kind of slowed down. Now, we were fortunate enough to have a gentleman who, I read his story back in one of the shows previously, that when he lived in Maryland and had this Dogman encounter near Frederick, Maryland. Actually, it was in Mount Airy, Pennsylvania, I think. But anyway, I don't know exactly where it was, but I know it was in Frederick County. But he had been keeping a record of these Dogman encounters in Pennsylvania and some of the other states around, the Mid-Atlantic. And I sent this over to Butch after I got it, and wow, it's amazing.
It's a 78-page report.
Yeah, it's amazing. Some of the stuff that he's gotten information about. Now he lives up in Effort, Pennsylvania now, and he's up in the eastern part of the state, but
Pocono area.
Yeah, he lives up near the Poconos. So, and he sent a lot of good information, a lot of good sighting information, stuff I didn't know about. I really didn't. So, this is information. This is the type of information we can use. If it's not a specific sighting or something that you've had, it doesn't necessarily have to be that. It can be information that you've gathered, or descriptions you have received, or evidence that people have talked about. This stuff, it's going to kind of fall in place after we get it all together. So, and I mentioned, Butch, how many people that are actually in the group now that are doing the investigations?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, we've got just a great group of researchers. I mean, these are folks that have been doing it a long time, and I'm probably going to learn a lot more from them than they're going to learn from me. But it's the way it has to be done. I mean, I think the day of the lone researcher and the lone group is done. The forces have to be combined. The forces have to be combined. To get the boots on the ground and to cover the area and to look at it from many angles instead of just one. to keep it under surveillance, which is very important, whether with cameras or infrared or thermal devices. We just ordered a drone. I should have it in about a month, they tell me. But this drone will go. It'll stick around 600 feet in the air, and it has both infrared and standard camera on it. It's got a gimbal, so it's very stable. It's got GPS tracking, the whole 9 yards. So, we're just going to keep trying to put out as much as we can, and because look, we all know that you can only cover so much area in a day. But at night, covering area is kind of tough because, first of all, you really don't know where you're going, and you're missing a lot of stuff. But with a drone, we can get up and cover open fields and wooded areas with heat-seeking device. And I said infrared. It's not infrared. It's actually thermal camera on there. So maybe we'll get to see a lot of deer and a lot of bear and a lot of this and a lot of that. But it's that 8-foot tall fella that I'm looking for.
Yeah.
I just want one picture. That's all I want.
Yeah, well, hopefully everything will be it'll be a safe investigation as well, because this is the kind of thing that worries me. You're getting involved with something that we really do not know what it is.
Yeah, but that doesn't scare me. I'm married.
Bum bum ba bum.
But with Bigfoot, people go out hunting or looking for Bigfoot. They kind of know what to expect in a way, I guess. I guess there's enough information and enough investigation to kind of make you worry of what you're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
But in this situation, this is entirely different.
Yeah, and plus the fact that we're gonna have researchers involved in this that, like I said, they have a long background in looking for stuff like this. Maybe not this particular type of creature, but every little idea, every little statement, every little what if this works, what can we try? Can we try this? Anything like that is going to be a great help, because like I said, there's just no way of doing this. There's no books on this, and it's no protocol on how to handle this investigation. So it's basically going to be shooting from the hip and seeing what works.
Well, my thought is that this area in Clearfield County, which is that's Penfield, but that's Shannon State Park and all that area around there, that's going to need to be investigated several times, because I think it's going to they may be where most of the viable evidence is found, basically. And I think we're going to be in a good situation as far as, setting up there and a few other anemones. I can't even say that. Anemones or whatever.
Lon's hurting himself.
And I think it's going to be a location, just because we got the 2 reports. But I think just, by looking at the area and from some of the things we've been hearing, and even some oddball things we've been hearing, I think that's probably where the best investigation is going to turn. Who knows? You never know. You never know. We go someplace like you guys be on your way up there and have one run across the road on you. Don't know.
Yeah,
So.
That's true. Yeah, you don't know, and so it's that proverbial trip into the unknown. Is what it amounts to.
If it was anywhere else, I would say it's unlikely. But the fact that it's in Clearfield or that area, which is just so bizarre, nothing would surprise me.
And you've had your experience there, correct?
Yeah, I mean it's a remarkable place, and I don't know what makes it so special, and maybe it's because I did have an experience with something there a couple of years back now, but is enough to make you think that not think. I know something's out there, but what the hell is it? And when we're talking about this Dogman, we don't know what the hell it is, right? We want to think it's a canine, but what if it is something paranormal or something otherworldly? What if it's a skinwalker? Butch, how do we prepare for that?
Well, after spending numerous hours on the phone with these folks out and on the reservation out there in Oklahoma, I mean, they gave me pages of tips, what to do, what to look for, what not to do. And I'll share those with the investigators, of course, when we all get together and we sit down. I'm going to just lay everything out and explain what I got and tell them where we're headed. But it's like the guy said, you know, how this started out with the Skinwalker brought into it is just weird. My wife runs is the manager for Dollar General. She has her own store, brand new big thing. She loves it. She's been in retail for years and she hates it. But she was talking to her assistant manager, and he just came out with, so how's Butch doing with his UFO stuff? And she said, well, right now they're working on something else. And she proceeds to tell him the story. And when she gets to the point where she says, glowing yellow eyes, he sits back in a chair. Now, he's full-blooded Cherokee. She said he turned white. He just kept staring at her. And she said, you all right? She thought maybe something was happening. And he says, say that again. And she goes and repeats the story. And he says, you know, your husband could be dealing with a skinwalker. Now, the only thing I know about Skinwalker is the book by, you know, the Skinwalker Ranch. And I'm thinking like, oh, okay. And he said, I got to make some phone calls. And so he went back into the office and made a few phone calls. And he came back and he said, look, he said, here's a number. Your husband needs a call list. So they'll expect his call tomorrow. Okay, so I called. And I tell him the story. And he said, it's very possible you're dealing with a Skinwalker. And he said, is that area ever been inhabited by indigenous? I said, oh, my God, yeah. I said, we had Susquehannock, Iroquois, Lenape, Mohawk. I said, you know, the place was loaded with them. And Lenape, Susquehannock, they pretty much inhabited all of central Pennsylvania back then and up until 1754. And then, you know, the tribes started going their different directions because they were always at war with each other. I mean, they all hated each other. And the Iroquois, Mohawk kind of went northeast, and, you know, the Delaware went south, and, you know, even certain elements went out to South Dakota. But he said, are you aware of what a skinwalker is? And I said, no. And he explained all that to me, that, you know, it's a medicine man or a shaman that has basically gone to the dark side. And he says, very vicious, very cunning, very smart. He said they can transform into anything. So even though they may be transformed into a wolf at one point, if they want to see something and they don't want to be seen, they could transform into a snake for stealth, or they could transform into a bird for an aerial view. But he said there's one thing that you will notice if you're fortunate enough to see something like that. He said, will be when they transform, there's a bright flash of a bright silvery light. And he said, it's like a flash bulb. He said they could walk into your camp. They could talk to you, like I said before. He gave me certain things to look for. They have a certain smell about them. Even when they're not in their transformed state, they smell like a handful of dirty pennies or rotting flesh or blood. He said that type of smell. He said, you know, if you have your suspicions about one, just go to shake his hand, say hello. He said, they won't shake your hand. He said, if you try to take a picture of them while they're standing there, you know, in human form, he said, they'll turn away. So he said, if you're encountering those types of things with somebody who would just walk into the camp or stop by to say hello, have a hot dog or whatever, he said, you're dealing with a skinwalker. And then the next day, overnight mail, they shipped me a medicine pouch to protect the group.
Well, you know, you got to look into the Native American aspect on this stuff like this. I mean, I've always said that. And
sure. I mean, look at, you know, the big hairy man. That's indigenous. That's not Bigfoot from, you know, recently. That goes back hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. Mm. And they describe it just like we get them described to us now. Mm. So is a skinwalker out of the question? Not really. You know, it's possible, but it's as possible as, you know, is there a dogman walking around there? Is there a werewolf walking around there? Is there some guy from the local garage sale walking around with a wolf hat on? Who knows? We'll just have to find out. Well, and the only way we're going to find out is get boots on the ground. We can't do it by talking to people on telephone and looking at maps on the internet and stuff like that and getting topo maps, that's not getting us anywhere. I mean, it gives us basic information, but it doesn't advance the investigation any, and the only way to advance it is to go.
Agreed. And I think keeping an open mind going into this is incredibly important because we really don't know, again, what it is we're dealing with. But, you're right. Boots on the ground is the only way to start getting answers to this. And just like every other mystery that we talk about and encounter, it's better when we have experience doing it. And like you said, you've assembled a team that's got quite a bit of experience. They're all good people, and they're all credible people. And I'm looking forward to seeing what comes from it.
Yeah, me as well. I'd be very interested to see what you come up with this weekend.
Well, we're going to document everything. You guys know what the van looks like, so we have everything there to document it. We'll have Wi-Fi. We'll have satellite communication. We'll have all that stuff, computers. So we'll be able to document everything that's going on. We'll keep a log. I decided to keep a log every 15 minutes, enter into a log. We'll have our weather station is going to be out. We want to put that out to see if there's any change in weather, like a temperature inversion. And the only reason I brought that in was because that certain reports that I've read over the past on Bigfoot, where guys have been hunting in the cold, absolute cold, freezing weather, stomping around the woods like I used to do. And next thing you know, they're in a temperature area where the temperature rose, 20, 25 degrees. And there's hardly any snow on the ground. They just came through maybe 2 foot of snow. Now they're standing in maybe 2 or 3 inches of snow, and it's melting or it's warmer. And, they see this strange being in that area. So for my own satisfaction, I want to know if temperature inversions play any part of these creatures being able to kind of walk out of sight. Maybe they're walking from a snowy area and they get into a temperature inversion where there is no snow on the ground, and that's where people stop looking. Okay, so the track disappeared, and there they are.
You've got the gear to do it, Butch. That's for sure.
Yeah, I think with the amount of stuff you've got, I think you're going to get something interesting anyway. Don't know where, but I think something's going to turn up. It's going to question.
And I'll tell you another thing. We will have cameras pointed toward the sky the whole time. Because there's enough stories out there, and again, keeping an open mind where something's seen on the ground and something's seen in the sky. Yeah. So we'll have eyes on the ground plenty. So I'm going to have a couple cameras pointed toward the sky.
Just like Sean was saying, that area up there, it does seem to happen to where when there's different types of phenomena going on at the same time, where it be lights or where it be something throwing rocks or sticks at you from the woods, or hearing things at one time. Yeah, or in his case, something.
Yeah, and that's the kind of the little stuff that we have to really look for. The odd thing. I don't want to look for the obvious. I want to look for something that's just out of the ordinary, something that shouldn't happen, or something that happened that is just not right for that area.
Well, the thing that's phenomenal about this area is the absence of light pollution in the sky. So you're going to get an incredible view of the skyline. So even if you don't get anything out of this world or whatever we're looking for in that respect, you're going to get one hell of a view of the stars, as long as it's not cloudy.
Yeah. Well, we were on a case down in Virginia and didn't pay a whole lot of attention going down, but on the way back when it was daylight, of course, we went down when they had that rain storm going up and down the East Coast, and so the sky was pretty cloudy until we got just the other side of Penfield where it started to clear up, and that's where we really got a good look at those woods and the sky. I mean, the view was amazing. I mean, it was just wide open, and there's nothing there. I mean, you got a couple little towns, but other than that, there's nothing there. I mean, there's no cities around there. There's no big thoroughfares, no airports, So light pollution-wise, I think we'll be good. But I'm really counting on the heat detection devices, the FLIR cameras, to do their thing, because infrared you can see a great deal, but when you have a thermal imager, you can see unbelievable things.
Well, no yipping, yelling, or tree banging. You don't need that this time around.
No. But and if anybody decides they're going to throw donuts into the woods, they're going to have to fight me, because I want the donuts before they get them into the woods.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's and no way is my wife going to let me take any ribs out of the freezer and nail them to a tree. It's going to be an interesting investigation. It's going to be all new, really. I mean, it's nothing that I don't know of anybody ever doing it. I mean, even JC and Jack and those guys out in the Colorado area. I mean, they follow up on a case, and they got a whole different way of doing it out there than we would here, because they got the rivers, they got the mountains, they got the plateaus, they got it's different. It's just different.
Mm-hmm.
And then here, you got woods where you can't see 5 foot in front of you. So it's going to be different. It'll be exciting. And we'll have radio contact with everybody. Nobody's going to be walking around without a radio, and we'll have radio contact with everybody, so nobody's going to get lost. We have everything we need. I mean, we got medical supplies. We got everybody's bringing their own food, and I got to feed my one guy, which means I have to spend about $300 at the store tomorrow. He eats a lot.
Now, I do want to say to the listeners, if you, and especially those that live in PA, if you do have any information or have something, a type of sighting that may be like, may correlate to what we're talking about, please feel free to contact us, really. I mean, because, you don't have to tell us who you are. It'd be nice, but we're mostly looking for information. And, if we can get sightings, in groups, which is probably the best thing. If we can get sightings in groups, certain groups, like we have been getting, actually, that's going to help a lot.
Yeah, it narrows down the area of investigation a great deal.
Absolutely. I think we've been pretty fortunate with the reports we have gotten, that so many of them are in one area. Yeah. You get 2 or 3 of them in one area. You get 10 reports, and 6 of them are related. Well, that's pretty unusual.
Yeah, and I guess the thing that really bugs me the most about all these reports are they're so similar.
Yeah.
I mean, in description, they're so similar in reaction on the part of the viewer that it's weird. It's just weird.
Well, it's just it's something that you really don't expect to see. I mean, even if you at a distance saw a Bigfoot, that'd be very exciting. Or it would be something you just couldn't believe you see. Believe me, I know that. But I'm telling you, if there's a 7-foot canid standing in front of me, or crouching on the side of the road eating on something as I'm going by, then looking at me as I go by him, that's going to really freak me out.
Yeah.
Anybody bringing the milk bones?
I'm bringing 5 pounds.
Right, that's good.
Extra large.
I might get hungry,
I tell you, this is something new. Really
also, I'm bringing Depends.
Are you?
Mandatory.
Yeah, mandatory.
Well, Lon, what do we got to anything recent to come on Phantoms and Monsters here? We can.
I'll be honest with you, it's been a pretty slow week. I haven't gotten a whole much of anything, to be quite honest with you. And other than I did get a strange report from the White Mountains area of New Hampshire, which isn't unusual, because that is a strange area up there. Historically, even with the Native Americans that lived up in that area, there's been a lot of weird things that go on up there. And I don't know if this woman is dealing with a Bigfoot, or possibly, like I told her, because some of her descriptions may be a canid. But if you think about it, that isn't far from that area where Linda had her report from up there in Maine. With the canids in the forest, and then kind of holding up the family in the house. And those type of wolf reports are known up there. So I don't know what she's dealing with. She contacted me again today, and thought she caught a picture or something. So she's actually going to send either a thumb drive or a CD to me. She says she got a bunch of pictures. So I don't know what she's seeing.
I don't know either.
But that's about all I've gotten this week.
What about you, Butch? You got anything exciting besides the Dogman stuff?
A couple of sightings of triangles in the Berks County area and Butler.
I just got one near Bloomsburg I was going to send off to you, and I'll send that to you as soon as we get offline. There's a picture associated with it, very triangular in shape. I mean, very sharp angles.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's a very good description because they are very sharp angles. I've only ever seen one that wasn't, and that happened. That was in Exeter Township, Lower Berks County, and Southern Berks County, and it had the guy described it like a harpoon shape sticking out the nose, the very point of the triangle, and he said it was about almost half the size of the triangle, which was huge in his estimations. And so I took the first report, and then 6 weeks later, he and 9 other people witnessed the same thing in a different, same basic area with maybe 10 miles, but they were standing in a parking lot at Boscov's, really just shooting the breeze, just folks that knew each other, and there it goes in another direction. Very dark in color, no lights whatsoever. It was a daytime sighting, and it just kind of banked off to the right and shot away, gone. He said it's almost like it disappeared, but he said it didn't. He said it actually turned and moved forward before it just shot out of sight. Mm. So triangles and orbs are the biggest thing being seen right now, and the orbs are being seen very close to the ground. I've seen reports of 500 feet and less to the ground. Reports of these things following people home. That's a little scary. But it's biggest thing right now is the creature sightings. I mean, they're just not here in Pennsylvania. They're all over the country. Not so much exactly what we have, but close.
Yeah, they really are all over the place.
Yeah, they're everywhere. And I don't know what brought that on. And another thing that's kind of weird, sightings of Bigfoot have kind of weaned down a bit, but sightings of abductions, not sightings, but abductions in general, have picked up over the last 2 years and continue to. I had somebody ask me the other day if David Pallades may be dealing with one of these creatures. And, I don't know. I have no idea. I've read his stuff. I've read his reports and I've looked at stuff, but, how would you even say that? I mean, these people are never found. So now if you find somebody that's laying there and they're shredded, if they can prove it wasn't a bear and it was something other than a bear, well, not those parts of the country in the Midwest and the West and the West and Northwest. I mean, you've got an abundance of wolves of all varieties. You've got some huge bears out there. They'll take your head off with one swipe. And but it's like one guy was talking to a game commission officer. I've been at it many, many years. I knew him when I was a police officer, and he was saying to me, he says, because I asked him about that, and he said, no, he said, a bear will kill you. He said, but then it'll just drag you off somewhere, and it'll just munch on you like a sandwich. He said, it's not going to rip you apart. He said, it may take a leg off and, like a turkey dinner, but he said, other than that, he said, the body's pretty much intact. He said, a wolf, it'll go for the soft spots and it'll leave. It'll fill up and it'll go. And then, other predators come in, but these ones that go away and disappear. I mean, I've been researching that since 2008, 2007, and that number never changes. I mean, there's just thousands and thousands of people. I mean, we spoke about this before on the show. I mean, it just there's no rhyme or reason to it. I mean, they're just gone. They just don't exist anymore.
Well, I have a lot of opinions on a lot of things like that, but you know, who's to say what's right and wrong? And you know, I there's a lot of stuff we don't know. There's a lot of stuff that can't be explained. Maybe one day it will be explained. You know, maybe we're this thing with the Dogman or any type of creature similar to that. Who knows what we're going to run into or find? Maybe we'll find a thing. But I mean, it's just like, you know, and most people will tell you, well, you're chasing dreams, you're chasing, you know, you're just chasing stories. Well, yeah, okay, we'll give you the benefit of the doubt on that. But the thing is, there are way too many people out there that are very serious about this, and whether it be cryptids, ghosts, UFOs, whatever.
Sure, and all these folks are reporting this. You know, these are just not residents from the local insane asylum that were let loose in the afternoon and call you at night. I mean, these people, a lot of these people are professionals. Some are, pilots. Some are police officers. Some are doctors, lawyers. I mean, every now and then you'll get your oddball that, you know, starts out the story with, you know, I seen this tooth fairy, and I'm thinking like, okay. But most of the reports, in all of these reports that I've seen and read, I mean, all these people are credible. I mean, I don't see anything in there, and there's a lot of catchphrases that you can catch them on. Mm-hmm. You know, a lot of open-ended and closed-end questions, but no, these people aren't. They're passing that test. So, whatever they're seeing. Although the descriptions may be a little off on one way or the other, they're very, very similar. And the one that sticks with me all the time is the glowing yellow eyes, not red. I've read Bigfoot reports that say, you know, glowing red eyes. Some Dogman reports, glowing red eyes. All the reports we got, pretty much all, with the exception of one or two, all have the glowing yellow eyes or amber. Mm-hmm. So,
yeah, that's fairly universal. Mm-hmm. I mean, you know, anywhere for that we've gotten reports, it's the yellow eyes. So. Yeah,
and I don't understand it because, you know, when I was talking to the folks out there in Oklahoma, who, by the way, are just so gracious, it's unbelievable, and they're very concerned about our safety. Mm-hmm. We're saying, you know, the glowing yellow eyes, he said, if it's daytime and one does saunter in and, you know, start to talk and all that stuff, he said, you know what to do. There's different things that you can tell what's going on. But he said, they will be wearing dark glasses. He said of some sort, either sunglasses or maybe snow glasses or something like that in the wintertime. He said, but their eyes will be covered. And he said, their eyes are covered for a reason, because those eyes, which are adept for darkness, you know, he said they're like infrared. He said they don't do very well in bright sunlight. And, so we took some precautions there, and, you know, a friend of mine that does some work for the U.S. government sent me a piece of equipment to use in case that does happen. So we got some surprises, and I think we'll be in good shape.
Well, Sean, I think we may wrap this up tonight. It's been a pretty good show.
It's been a great show, and I'm thankful, Butch, that you jumped on here and spent the entire show with us talking about this upcoming Dogman event and just a Dogman case in general, because it's really important that we bring the listeners up to speed on everything that's been going on behind the scenes and the plans to get some answers behind this mystery.
Yeah, it's very important to share the information because, you know, maybe somebody that's just listening to the show or somebody that or is not listening to the show, but their buddy did, and they, you know, bring it up, and they, you know, that might bring back a memory, or it may bring up another location we should be looking at, or something strange that they saw in the woods, maybe the carcass of a deer, or maybe a bear tore up. You know, there ain't too many things out there that's going to tear up a bear. Mm-hmm. And that was one thing I was really looking for. I was looking for any type of, you know, bear cadavers that were found that were tore up pretty bad. Because everything I read one of the things that really sticks out a lot is that these things really don't have a lot of etiquette when they're eating. They just rip and tear. So that's another thing we're going to be looking for. And like I said, bones with chew marks and stuff like that. And we have a dissection kit in the truck, and we have everything we need to protect the evidence. So we've already got a science guy that will take a look at everything for us. So, and we even got a microscope on the truck if we need to really look at something really close there. So, hoping it all goes well and we don't lose Sean in the woods.
That never happens, no matter how hard they try.
Pennsylvania CSI. Dogman CSI.
Yeah, Dogman
Best
CSI.
way to do it. Best way. Well, Butch, thank you very much for joining us, Lon. Great show tonight, guys. But before we go, Lon, as much as you and I like to be great stewards for the paranormal, we also like to be stewards for the world we live in. And if folks, no matter how down you're feeling and life gets in the way and you feel like you've got nowhere to turn to, there's help out there for you. You can call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 1-800-273-TALK. Someone's always out there for you to listen. We want to make sure everybody's got someone to talk to out there. And we're also going to be partnering with Feeding America. Every dollar you donate to Feeding America provides 11 meals for folks in need. So just stay tuned to the website, arcaneradio.com, so you can connect with those very important programs. And not to leave you on a down note, but, as much as we like to talk about the world of the paranormal, the world of the living needs us just as much. So until next week, folks, well, actually not next week. Next week we won't be doing a show. The studio,
we won't be doing a show next week.
Studio will be getting a little bit of a makeover, so we won't be doing that, but we'll catch us the following week. Go to facebook.com, Arcane Radio, check us out, and for the latest information. Folks, thanks for listening. Good night. We'll see you very soon.